Hello. Okay. And then let me share them. Like they weren't getting the presentation online. Rather, am I going to go through this again? The last time I presented, we couldn't, I had the wrong presentation on, we couldn't get the device. I was a little stressed. So this core 7-8 breathing, it actually, like when you're stressed, your breath shortens. I'm here now. Thank you. It's so embarrassing. But what the hope is to get you to have deeper breathing. So we'll practice it together, but you breathe in for 4 counts, and then you hold your breath for 7, and then you exhale for 8. So it'd be like, okay, so you guys want to practice it with me? All right, so let's inhale for 4. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. And what happens with breath, it brings oxygen to the middle of your brain. So this is in front of your brain where all your decisions are happening. But when you're stressed or upset, we call it flipping the lid, and you end up working off your emotional brain or the amygdala. And so oxygen is like a nice warm blanket that comes around you and calms it. So then you can re-engage with thinking. So when people are in crisis or triggered, their thinking brain is shut off and it's just their emotional brain acting. So this could be one strategy. And don't ever tell someone to breathe. You can say, I wonder if you want to breathe with me. Let's just breathe. You can just over exaggerate it. And what happens is when you're walking with someone, you end up in the same cadence as them. And it's the same with breathing. If you can practice that breathing, I've had students have anxiety attacks, and I'll just do this with them, and it will help get that oxygen and kind of calm their nervous system. So we're going to talk a little bit about suicide prevention. And what we know is there's some factors that can help kind of protect anyone from feeling or engaging in suicidal behavior. And the number one thing is having at least one trusted adult in life, whether it's a family member, a community member, a teacher, a faith-based leader, but having that one person I know I can go to, be my authentic self, and be able to share, I'm really struggling right now, and I just need some advice. Or a lot of times my mom told me we had 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we just listen twice as much as we speak. And so oftentimes I hear from people who are suicidal, they don't need someone to talk to them. They just need someone to share space with them or to listen and just allow an opportunity for them to feel safe. Students feel most safe at school in terms of being connected with their peers and then extracurricular activities. Next one. So what do we do when we're concerned about someone maybe being at risk of suicide? It's knowing what to look for, right? Knowing the signs, being able to find the words and talk to them about it, and then reaching out and connecting them with care. And the hard part about this is oftentimes we don't want to talk about suicide, right? There's this myth that if we talk about that word, the S word, that we might be putting the idea in someone's head. But what we know is the idea is already there. And when someone's thinking about suicide, they've exhausted everything they know what to do, and they want to get rid of the pain, and they think that's the only option. So being able to talk about suicide demystifies it. And I have found any student I've worked with, when I talk openly about it, you'll see them relax and feel, okay, I have this trusted person that I can have a conversation with. Next. So what are the signs? So there's something called protective factors. What protects me and what do I have in my life that keeps me grounded and connected? Risk factors, things that could put me at risk. Doesn't mean I'm suicidal. And then warning signs. That dashboard light going off, like, oh, I need to pay attention to this. So protective factors are having a sense of connection. We talked earlier before, some folks were able to join us, that having that sense of purpose and that connection, being seen, being heard, and being part of something really fills who we are. Because as human beings, we're animals, we're very social, right? So we need that sense of being part of something. The sense of hope is one of the critical areas of someone feeling like, if I have hope and that's bigger than my pain, then I'm going to live, and I'll find other ways to get through whatever the struggle I'm facing right now. Then risk factors. So we know with adolescents, sometimes they'll act before they think, you know. So being able to, that impulsivity could be a risk factor. Hopelessness is a huge risk factor where you feel like there's just nothing's ever going to change. Access to firearms is what we call access to means. Many students who have died have been to guns being in the home, and not that guns are bad, but oftentimes the students they're locked up and they know the code. So if you have a gun, the access to means is we ask for you to put a lock on the actual trigger, so then you have a dual kind of protective barrier for someone to get to the gun. And in warning signs, this is something we need to really pay attention. So the protective factors we want to build, the risk factors we want to be aware, but the warning signs we want to react and respond to. The biggest one is if you see someone who suddenly changed dramatically, they're just not themselves, and you get that gut feeling, that's when you need to connect and see what's going on. That doesn't mean they're suicidal, but it's something we really need to lean in and have a conversation. So someone who's usually really outgoing and now they're quiet, or someone who's quiet and now they're usually outgoing. What we found is that individuals right before, if they're planning, right before they're going to die by suicide, they're very happy and they feel like they have their whole life together because they've made all the arrangements they need to make. So sometimes you'll see an uptick on that. So if you see a significant change, ask about it. What are you noticing? If they're starting to give away things that they love to friends, or, people they love, they might be writing notes, they might be on the internet researching about it, just something to be aware of and be able to have a conversation. So you start the conversation, how do you do that? And it could be just, mentioning what I've noticed lately, and then ask them about suicide, and then listen. Oftentimes we want to say, oh, you have so much to live for. But doing that just shuts the whole conversation down, because really it's not about the living and dying, it's about the pain. So being able to connect and acknowledge, I see something changing, I see something different. Let's have a conversation. Next slide. So you're like, oh no, how do I do that? I teach at San Diego State as well, and I'm a psychologist in the district. Every time I teach my students, and we've been doing this for a year, it's really hard to use the word suicide. So just know, I acknowledge it's something hard. My family has been impacted by suicide, and I'll tell you, it's a whole different experience working with, in the educational system and then having something within your own family. But it could be something as simple as saying, hey, is everything okay? Just something light, or it could be, hey, I've noticed you've really been feeling hopeless a lot lately. Tell me more. What's going on? Let's talk. It could be you just go right in and say, hey, sometimes when people are feeling this way, they're thinking about suicide. Is that something we're talking about or something you're thinking about right now? So just putting it out there. And even if someone says no, well, let's talk about, what's going on. And, or, if suicide is something that's on your mind, ask about it. I'll tell you, there's not one parent who wants to do that. And parents will tell me, we did a parent forum and they said, I don't want to know the answer, because if I hear yes, I don't know what to do. Right. And the yes means, you know what, thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate you feel safe telling me. And it's just like having those difficult conversations like stranger danger, or, driving with someone who might be under the influence, or someone, when students, might be in situations where drugs or alcohol are involved, or, safe relationships with others. It's another safety area. So I had the conversation, and then what do I do? So the first thing is to stay calm, because I will tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. Every time I have a student who says, yes, I'm thinking about suicide, I have a plan, I'm like, oh no, what do I do? Even though I've been doing this for many, many years, it's like that shock, like, oh my gosh, this is literally life and death right now. It's pretty heavy. Making sure you continue to supervise them and then connect with a resource. So has anyone seen this phone number before? So on the back of every student's ID and every staff member's ID, there are crisis lines. There's the access crisis line, and it's then there's also a text line, and there's also some warm lines. And that's required by the state of California. The state of California was the first state to actually have suicide prevention requirements in the schools. So our district's been ahead of the game, and we've been doing some great work in that area. But at the federal level, they passed a bill in 2017 that requires by this July, every phone carrier needs to be able to have this number work and go directly to the access and crisis line. So no one has to remember these long numbers, right? It's just like 911 or 211. We have 988. And kids these days don't know 411. But this access and crisis line is a place for anyone, a student, a parent, a teacher, anyone who is concerned about themselves or concerned about someone else. And it could be mental health related.
It's just a friendly reminder that we want parents and attendees to stay in the classrooms after the session is over in order to view the very important awards ceremony that we have planned for after. Thank you.
So this access and crisis line could be for if you're concerned about your or someone else's mental health needs, or there's issues related to substance use or suicide. So it's not just suicide. I've called a number myself. I am one of the lead crisis responders in the district. So we've had staff who've died, we've had students who've died. And when I'm done with that, I have a lot of that in me. And so I need to talk to someone. So instead of going home and dumping it all on my husband each time, I'll call someone and just debrief with them. So then I can say it out loud, get it off my chest and process it and be able to cleanse myself from it. But if you ever have a question, you can call that line. Or you want to know a resource, you can call that line. If your child or someone you know is suicidal and need immediate care, usually in the schools, we'll do a risk assessment and then we'll connect the student to their parent. And often we involve law enforcement, the PERT team, who are trained in how to support someone and help them get to safety into the ESU. This line for the community, not schools yet, you can call the number, and instead of having law enforcement, they'll send mental health. It's called the Mobile Crisis Response Team. They will come to your house, they will assess the situation, and they will then monitor the student or the person for, I think it's like 30 days, and connect them to different resources. Right now with mental health, it was a pandemic before COVID hit. So now we have two pandemics back to back. So our mental health is really wavering at times, right? And there's just not a lot of resources that you can get into. Say if you needed counseling right away, it's really tough to get into that because the whole system's inundated. But so this is a great way to at least get immediate care and response and connection. And then May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Our school district did pass a proclamation, and we've pushed things out to schools. Our youth are really the great ambassadors for mental health awareness. Back in March, the state of California did something called Mind Out Loud. And it was a virtual conference for students, led by students and created by students. And they had different athletes and rap stars and actors and different people that would do little spotlights and stuff. And we actually have an ambassador in our district who helped out with that. And that ended up going viral worldwide. And so they're hoping this next year it will be in person. But these are just some helpful hints. You'll see some different phone numbers. And this is from the County Office of Ed. One I want to just point out is the Trevor Project. During the pandemic, our youth who are part of the LGBTQIA community have been 4 times more at risk of suicide than any other community. So the Trevor Project specifically provides support for that community. And then these are just some helpful tips. I'll make sure you all will post this PowerPoint in the conference so you can all get a copy of it. And then when we did the breathing, that was like one technique. I have worked in residential facilities for many years and with students with significant mental health needs. And there are times where kids get triggered from past trauma, or they have an anxiety attack, or they just freeze and they can't even move. And so just breathing is the first step. But then the next step would be re-engaging that brain by tapping into the senses. Because when you're stressed and you can't think and move, you might need someone to say, okay, let's just stop for a minute. I wonder what is one thing that I see right now. And you can have them just look around. They might not, I had this one student, she couldn't speak, she couldn't physically move, she could just blink her eyes. And so I just went through all the senses. So what do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? You could start with 1 or 2 or ask them for 1 or 2 in each one, but just anything that gets re-engaging your senses will then help your brain reconnect as well. We call that grounding techniques. And then these are just some different resources. All the ones in the middle are all those hotlines. They still work. And as I shared, but the 988 is going to replace a lot of those. The text line, I've tried it myself as a school psychologist. You just text in hello to 741-741. And the reason I did it is I wanted to see how fast the response was, and they responded right away. So it's a great way. I know my nieces don't use a telephone anymore. Everything's through text or through IG or, what have you. So it's a great way, a different way for someone, and maybe someone's apprehensive about talking to someone, it's another way to communicate. A lot of the resources you saw today are between the California Know the Signs that Each Mind Matters. And those are some great resources, students. If you're interested, they do a film competition every year. I think it's like a 1 to 3 minute film festival that you can make some different little clips around mental health, around suicide prevention. And we've had some students in the district do that. And I just started being a reviewer of those. And it's amazing to see students talk about mental health and be able to really publicize it. And then on the right-hand side are just some different apps that are helpful for youth, just to be able to give you resources. All right, so I want to do a quick what we call optimistic closure. And I want you to think of one thing you're going to do this month to take care of you. I know for me, I just had knee surgery, so something I've been doing is just riding a stationary bike every day just to get my body back and moving. You want to go next?
I'm going to eat more. Yeah. I want to walk more because I'm always sitting down at school and at home.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a walk at least every other day.
Nice.
Sleep more so I'm not as tired. I'm going to try to read less. Exercise.
I think exercise a little bit more.
Oh, exercise, I'm probably going to the beach.
There you
Right
go.
with you.
I know we kind of got out of our routines, right? With the pandemic and everything, we're just starting to kind of maybe move closer to that, and that kind of helps ground us as well. Excellent, thank you. Next slide. So this is my contact information. I'm the district suicide prevention and well-being coordinator, and our superintendent and board of trustees are very committed to working on the well-being not only of students, which I've done for a long time, but this year really focusing on our adults. This year we've been, there's been times where there haven't been enough teachers for classrooms. So I've gone out and I've substituted in classrooms, or just people are overextended or they've had to be out because of COVID and, procedures and all of that exposure. So it's been a tough year and just shifting from the virtual to in-person. And so we're really trying to make sure that all our staff are well, because if we're not well as parents or as, teachers and adults, then it's gonna be hard for our kids to be well because they look to us, right? When your student or your child, when they were growing up and they fell when they were learning how to walk, the first thing they did is look at us, right? And so they're looking at us right now. How are we handling this? And it's okay if we're not okay, right? It's okay to not be okay, but we really need to lean in and what can we do to help ourselves? Just do one thing positive each day for ourselves. All right. That's all I have for the presentation. Are there any questions or comments, concerns, reflections?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And the holes in the brain thing is,
I know, isn't that
kids should
crazy?
know that.
Yeah,
We still don't know that.
I know. I'm really into neuroscience, and I don't know if you've seen, what is that, social?
Social dilemma.
Yeah, social dilemma. Have you seen that?
I've seen that.
So would you mind telling people what that is? I just saw it. No, I saw your face. It's this movie about the impact of social media and how it's wired to actually create an addictive behavior. And it controls our whole behavior, right? In terms of how we respond to things, marketing, you get so many likes, enough likes, and then it creates this kind of duality thing. So we're thinking about showing that and doing a movie review and viewing with families because it's incredible the impact that the social media has on us. It's not this total positive thing, it actually can create more harm. So it was very interesting. Thank you. What school do you go to?
National.
Oh, nice. That's neat. Yeah, so I'm hoping to be able to do that. But
Excuse me, what was the name?
Social Dilemma? Is that the name of it?
The Social Dilemma on Netflix.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. It was free for a while. I don't know if it still is. Like anyone could get into it, even if you didn't have a Netflix account. I don't know if it still is, but I was blown away. I just had no idea. And these are people that used to work in social media and led it and created a lot of the different apps who are no longer in it. And they'll talk about how they don't allow their own kids, you know? Yeah. It was very insightful. I was like, wow. We always thought that, but we never had the data, and now there's data showing it. So, well, I thank all of you, and I really appreciate you spending this time being here, you know, at the symposium and coming into this time where we could connect as a community. I really appreciate it, and I hope you're well. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. And again, we will make sure that the PowerPoint is posted in the community.